Tolosa railway yard near La Plata in Argentina. Like so many rail graveyards around the world, it tells a story of neglect and decline. These rusting hulks are memorials to Argentina's once great railway, and for those who worked on them, the dereliction is a poignant reminder of the past.
Here there were at one time over 6,000 work people. Today there are 220 perhaps, and the abandonment that you see in the grass and the buildings makes it rather sad for me. I was very active here, in fact, the start of my career. It's very sad to see it today.
All over the world, railways are in decay. The pioneers who created them believed they were building the future, a permanent answer to the problems of transporting goods and people. Permanent, that is, until people stopped using them. In cities, railways have had to fight an unequal battle with other transport. In Los Angeles, car capital of the world, lost the battle altogether. The way societies choose their transport is far from simple. Decisions today about roads and rail and public transport will dramatically affect life for generations, but those judgments can be perilous.
Predicting the future is always very hard because most of the time people get it wrong if you talk about really big changes. And I remember when I was a boy in the late 40s and early 50s, everybody assumed the helicopter was going to take over from the car.
The helicopter age is here, but there aren't two in every garage yet. It's going to be a while before Pop can sleep an extra half-hour mornings because he's riding a copter to work. They claim any housewife can learn to fly it alone in an hour. It can go 85 miles an hour, gets 8 miles per gallon of gasoline, flies 2.5 hours without refueling.
That proved to happen, and imagine what life would be like if we had traffic congestion in 3 dimensions rather than 2. It would probably be an environmental nightmare. It clearly indicates that we're fascinated throughout our history with modes of transportation, forms of transportation, but we've not been very good predictors of what the future will actually hold.
In the 1950s, America's Union Pacific Railroad envisioned a future driven by technology.
As always, the story of railroad progress will be written by a dynamic industry whose emblem is the flanged wheel. The discussion here is about the practicability of an atomic-powered locomotive.
Can you get enough shielding to protect against external radiation?
Well, we have 10 feet here, Bob. But we can work in, and here...
This exchange is one of the strengths of railroad research.
Engineers alone could never determine the future of the railways. For their ideas to be adopted, they would always need allies in business politics or public opinion. In every country, there had to be a reason for the railways. Someone had to have a stake in them for the dreams of engineers to take shape. For the railway pioneers of the 19th century, purpose was not solely transport. In Argentina, their objectives were very clear, simply to make money out of the country.
Corre la chapa y...
¿Están viniendo?
Today, the money-spinning days are over. Now it is a constant battle with obsolete equipment for the men at the Tolosa signal box.
A train is coming through from La Plata towards Gringeles. We lower the signals. It is a system of levers. Because the levers are so old, they are very heavy. This has a continuous bad effect on our health. It causes back trouble, a lot of problems. Even psychologically, because we never seem to get away problems of the trains. So, I lower the signal, give the all clear for the train to go through to the next station. When it's passed, I gradually change the signals to avoid accidents. This is what we do. At the same time, we have to look after the trains going the other way, towards La Plata.
At the turn of the century, Argentina had one of the most efficient railway systems in the world. It was a key to the country's prosperity. Argentina was never a British colony, but in the early 1900s, British finance dominated her economy. By 1914, Argentina was the world's third largest exporter and the fastest growing economy in South America. The railways made it all possible.
They opened up the country and they replaced the oxen-hauled carts, which took months to arrive with hides, cereals, whatever, which in a few hours were transported very quickly and very easily by the railways. That was the beginning. And of course, they opened up and expanded, because this was the same as what had happened in Africa, in Asia, in India, all over the world. The British railways expanded the countries wherever they went. And this was one of them. And they prospered in those days.
As profits flowed out of the country in one direction, key personnel like Peter Curtis came from Britain to seek their fortune in the railway business.
There were drivers, firemen, importers, as well as the bosses, foreman level up, and of course the heads of departments. They were all English-speaking people. Well, each person understood his position, respected, and everybody carried out their duties as they were assigned. And they made a slight profit. And the shareholders, I believe, at home were grateful. They got their money back.
But that wasn't the only financial benefit to Britain. Everything from stations to locomotives and rolling stock was British made. Moreover, the coal that powered the trains came from British mines. Up to 55 million tons a year, a significant proportion of Britain's coal exports was shipped halfway round the world.
The British railways were sort of a two-edged weapon in Argentina, because they would favor products that were essential for the British economy, but they would not favor the natural internal markets of Argentina.
In 1946, a new era in Argentine politics began. General Perón's populist government wanted to put Argentina's interests first. Top of his agenda was nationalization of the railways.
En Tafí Viejo, la metrópoli de los ferroviarios, sede de los talleres más grandes de la nación, las fiestas caracteres de apoteosis. Los trabajadores del riel ven cómo el sueño de varias generaciones es toda la realidad. Los que construyeron merced al sacrificio ya son patrimonio de la nación. Desde ahora no trabajarán más para un residente allende los mares. El esfuerzo de cada uno se ofrendará solamente ante el altar de la patria.
for the nationalization of the railways started long before the Peron government. This was supported by most of the people, as we can see in the films and the newsreels that show the day of nationalization. And we have to understand the policy of nationalization as only a step of a wider context. This has to do with the nationalization of our public services and with a new outlook on the development of the economy in Argentina that started with the Peron government.
The objective was all the profits flowing to Europe could be kept within Argentina and benefit Argentinians. Very noble idea. And it was with great national pride and national objectives that these assets were purchased by Argentina. The problem came afterward. The objectives, the purpose of the nationalized institutions lost. Was the railroad there to provide transportation? Was it there to provide employment? Was it there to provide the need for public works? What was the function? The function and objectives of the institution got lost. Not only here, other countries as well. Here, the loss was more profound.
Under Peron, the railways, already in need of modernization, started to disintegrate. Lack of investment.
Well, horrible, terrible, wicked, madness. That's the railway's fault, because they didn't pursue and keep and protect their business. They let it go. Whereas before there were no roads, now there are. And the strange thing is that people haven't learnt that what can be hauled on a railway requires hundreds of motorized vehicles to transport. And subsequent costs are much higher. Have they forgotten that basic fact?
"40 years on, Argentina's economy and railways were in a mess, neglected by successive military regimes.
Given the sort of situation that we found 2-3 years ago, one could say that in no more than 5 years, the railways would have disappeared completely. In fact, we could say that half the system have disappeared already if we account for the number of locomotives that are working. It's only 45% of the total fleet. More than 50% of the network is in bad shape. Same can apply to all other items of the railway itself. In which case, I think that the country would have fallen in a chaos in transport terms.
Foreign capital was brought in by the Menem government of 1989. Lacking investment, they decided to denationalize the system and return to the private sector.
See?
The new management aims to turn the network back into profit, using a strategy that will mean a dramatic reduction in the size of the system. Nearly 90% of the workforce already lost their jobs. Measures to ensure survival, but for the Menem government, a cautious approach encouraging private investors to take the risks.
We had a system, a lot of money has been invested in the past. With the improvement of this same system, we can make a difference. We can do a lot. Some people thought that unless we had TGVs or bullet trains, we couldn't be saying that the railway of Argentina is coming back. We believe that being a poor country still, we cannot afford making all these technological changes. Maybe the need for very, sophisticated, futuristic trains not here yet. So in technological terms, we cannot compare to countries like Japan or France or others.
Argentina is the victim of two failed visions: of developers who made its economy dependent on a foreign-funded system, and the nationalists who ran the railways down. The new yardstick by which Argentina's railways will be judged is whether they can make money. The priorities of the railway today are closer now to those of the original pioneers. Some see making the railway pay as its station. Others argue that it represents a loss of vision of what railways are for, a means of transporting people and goods for the benefit of all.
I honestly believe that the policy of the government as far as the railway system is concerned, it's totally illogical from all points of view. We have to understand that many towns in the interior of Argentina are going to be left in total isolation. And this has to do with the people, with the humble people. In Argentina, most of our people, especially, the working classes, they take the trains. And the main consequence of the suppression of the railway system is that we're going to leave people in total isolation. Those facts.
The town of Maria Obanitas, once a thriving community, died with the railway. Whatever the future holds, the community railway built and then abandoned do not figure in the new vision.
Y ya les digo que la gente empezó a viajar.
The people went to Buenos Aires, Rosario, Bergamino, and other big cities where there was work, because the community couldn't do without the train. The train was very useful in the morning and the evening to get from one place to another. As soon as the train stopped, the village died.
Japan's railways are the envy of the world. Fast, clean, frequent, and punctual. They are a daunting example to other nations of what can be achieved when government, business, and science cooperate for the benefit of all. A Shinkansen, or bullet train, leaves Tokyo Central, on average, every 3.5 minutes.
Welcome aboard. This train, the Nozomi Express, runs between Tokyo and Hataka. My name is Sato, and I will be driving this train between Tokyo and Shin Osaka via Toyohashi. I'm very proud to be driving this world-famous train, which is known throughout the world to be the most reliable. My son is following in my footsteps to become a train driver. He is now working for the Tetsudo line.
Railways have thrived in Japan. The tightly controlled economy has protected them from competition, but at a price. In the crowded cities, trains are ideal for moving large numbers. With so many people, Every part of the system has to operate like clockwork. The Japanese have invested heavily in comfortable modern trains, but with little concern about the cost. In Tokyo, trains and subways handle around 90% of the salaried workers commuting to business districts, far more than in any other city in the world.
Many of the things that are most distinctive of modern Japan, both economically and culturally, are epitomized by its railroad system. Economically, of course, the whole Japanese miracle could not function without this railroad network, getting people from their suburbs to their jobs each day, moving freight so efficiently. Culturally, it is a kind of model of the miracle of modern Japan.
Japan thrives on a culture of consensus, where the interests of the population are seen as united with those of business and commerce in a unique vision of national well-being. In Tokyo, the rail system serves about 35 million passengers every day.
It is so established in Japanese popular culture that the trains will run on time that there's even a genre of detective stories where the plot always turns on train schedules, and they can go do all sorts of elaborate acts of deduction, saying that since the 8:45 arrived with a minute and a half to spare for the 8:47, then we know the killer could have made this transition, etc., etc. This kind of story would not be believable in the United States.
On the Ida line, the train departs at 10:15. She then switched to the 10:28, which arrived promptly at 10:42. She just had time to switch back to the train leaving in the other direction from Toyokawa at 10:50. She thought she could fool us by switching trains. Between the stations, it takes 15 minutes. The suspect pretended to be asleep for that time. Ah, yes. The suspect came out about 15 minutes later and switched trains.
Japan had no wheeled transport, and the first Westerners brought news of the railway in 1854. Cautious of opening its ports to Western goods, by the turn of the century, it was building and running its own trains. In their dash for modernization, Japanese embraced the railway as an ideal form of transport. The geography, a narrow string of volcanic islands, and a strict ordered society were ideal conditions for railways. As in Argentina, British engineers helped build the system, but in Japan, it remained firmly under the control of the Japanese. Ironically, the outcome of the Second World War gave the Japanese railways a further advantage.
If you compare the U.S. and Japanese or German economies since World War II, the main distortion that you see in the U.S. economy is how much of its money and especially how much of its scientific and engineering talent has gone into military-related activities. This has had some economic payoff, especially in the aviation and aerospace industries, but most people think it's been a real loss. In Japan, the same money and much of the same talent has gone instead to commercial projects and to the country's own infrastructure. And the excellence of Japan's train system is one sign of the things they're able to do since they haven't been building nuclear fleets.
In 1964, Japan launched a futuristic new train, the Shinkansen, opened less than 20 years after the devastation of the atom bomb. It was a signal to the world. Other countries sent many to space. Japan expressed its power through the train.
Well, I think what you need is what I call the building spirit. You've got to want to be a builder and set a record in history as somebody who built rather than consumed. Now, I think building is just as much a part of human nature as consuming. And of course, it's interesting if you think about it historically, the people we remember are the great builders, Ramesses II, the Roman Empire, the people who built and left something, not the people who had a very high standard of living.
Japan certainly had the building spirit, but it came at a price. Charged with the mission of reasserting national prestige, as well as providing transport for the economic miracle, Japanese railways forged ahead with more and better new trains, but they didn't pay their way. From 1964 on, with the introduction of the bullet train, losses started and kept on accumulating. While our countries tore up tracks and pruned spending, JNR, Japan's national railways, forged ahead. Armed with what seemed to be a blank check from the government, JNR invested in state-of-the-art technology. Costs went up as payroll increased. The government, footing the bill, faced a crisis.
The Japanese National Railways debt had to be such a problem that by 1987, the accumulated losses had reached 10% of the gross national product of Japan at that time. That's almost £2,000 per man, woman and child in the country.
In the 1980s, the vogue for questioning government spending reached Japan. Something had to be done to reduce the debt. In search of inspiration, the government looked to the private railways for help.
When the Japanese National Railways were first nationalized in the early 20th century, a small number of local lines were left in private hands, and these grew over the years until the private railways had come to rival in size the national railways.
The private railways grew with the communities they serviced. They bought up land around the tracks and developed property in service industries. They operated supermarkets and even funeral parlors. Railways were only part of their business. Today, they make money out of the customers the railways bring to their shops. In these diversified companies, the railways don't even have to make a profit. The system works. There are more private railways in Japan than anywhere else in the world. The national railways could not hope to copy the pattern of their private counterparts. Nevertheless, the government decided to privatize the system for management purposes, believing that in private hands, costs would be more firmly controlled.
The railways were privatized because there was a situation with the debt where it was seen as the only way of solving this really very serious situation. JNR had come to play a certain role in Japanese national life, including Japanese political life, whereby it was unable to control its own investment, and it was being forced to build lines in increasingly marginal areas for political reasons, which it then had to finance and pay for. And it just didn't, as a public corporation as it was then, it wasn't in a position to resist these pressures.
The government privatized the system in 1987, and now the new companies are being launched on the stock. The debt the national railways ran up will still have to be paid by the nation because they are so essential to the economy. Private or not, if they get into difficulties, the government is likely to come to their aid. So even in Japan, where there is a will to support the railways, where there are natural allies in business, government and society, and where railways make geographical sense, there is still a price to pay.
In every quarter of the in a dozen great cities, the bugle call of industry has summoned the clan. Legions of craftsmen have joined to supply transportation for a nation of individuals.
America was the first nation to transfer its affections, rails to the road. Cheap, mass-produced cars promised personal transport for a nation of individuals and sent the railways into decline.
The new automobiles stream from the factories, spreading pleasure and speeding business all across the country. The destination? Everywhere, USA.
All news, all the time. This is KFWB News 98. You give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Let's check an incident on the 101 in downtown. Here's Jeff Baugh.
Well, that was going away right now. We're southbound 101 at 4th Street. Just before you hit the East LA interchange, we had a couple of cars block up the fast lane. That's clearing right now. However, the southbound Hollywood is jammed solid all the way back to front and still building, actually. Jeff Baugh, Jetcopter 98.
Just getting reports now on the Pomona Freeway westbound beyond Lorena in East LA that we may have a fender bender. It gets westbound. Get it first, get it fast. Traffic every 10 minutes only on KFWB News 98.
The freeways, gosh, they're just always jammed here in Los Angeles. It's one of the most complicated systems I've ever seen. And our morning drives, afternoon drives here, it's not unusual at all to find a good 20, 25-mile backup. And that's with traffic itself, no accidents or pileups or anything like that. When we do have accidents, it's just horrendous. It goes back for miles. And, of course, everybody sits on the freeways, and the smog gets worse and worse and worse.
It's very clear if you look at some cities like Los Angeles that we're coming to the end of the automobile age. Because if you look at average speeds in our cities, they're slowing down. If you look at car sales, they've been flat or down for maybe a decade. And I think a historian looking back on it is going to say around 1990 was in some sense the end of the automobile age. And as we move into this more congested environment of the 21st century, we're going to have to find some other modes of transportation.
Los Angeles was once the home of one of the world's largest electric railways. It was so much a part of the fabric of the city that when the film industry established itself there, the famous Pacific Red Cars were stars of silent cinema.
Los Angeles grew up with the streetcar, and that meant that real estate developers could buy outlying parcels of property, subdivide them, and make them attractive to customers by connecting them to the downtown area with a streetcar line. Among the major developers making Los Angeles work at the beginning, among the people building the street railways and subdividing outlying land, was Henry Huntington, who already had family connections in the railway business and who primarily made his money through real estate development. But the mechanism by which the real estate development was successful was that transportation connection to the business areas of the city.
Huntington created the Pacific Electric Company in the early 1900s, running lines out to what were then farming areas. Houses and then suburbs soon grew up along the tracks. The network was the largest in America. It defined the shape of the city.
It was touching in the Southern California of the 1950s or 1960s to look back on the plans that Henry Huntington, for example, had laid for Southern California with his Red Line trains, because you could see the same cities that were there in Los Angeles's suburban development, but connected not by Interstate 10, not by the San Bernardino Freeway, not by the Santa Ana Freeway, but by this network of tram cars and trolleys and the red trains. And I often imagined how nice that must have been to be able to go the same routes, to make the same connections, but in these elegant-looking train cars of yesteryear.
Popular as a public service, the red car system only made money for a few years. It was easy prey for the competition.
In the early 1950s, a number of major corporations, the oil industry, the tire industry, the automobile industry, conspired to buy up the local city rail systems all over the country. Once they bought them up, then abandoned the rail cars in those cities. Pacific Electric, the big car, was our means of transportation, covered 1,100 miles in Los Angeles County. When that system was brought up and was then abandoned, that left us without an effective means of traveling easily, cheaply, efficiently.
The last train ran in 1961, creating yet another of the world's graveyards. As car sales in Los Angeles rocketed, those without them lost out.
When the red cars were taken out of Watts and out of the Los Angeles area, it really stagnated people. I think it had a great deal to do with interrupting families, children. The red car system, like all public transportation, is used a great deal by young people who normally don't have cars, you know, and years ago they really did not. And with the interest that most young people carry about, they need to go places, right? They need to experience things. And I think that job opportunity disappeared because there was not accessibility through good public transportation. I think that part of the spirit of the community dissipated also because something that you had known disappeared, like your grandmother. See what I mean? When there's something that you're so familiar with, something that you've loved, and something that offers you accommodation, when it simply dissolves, that's painful.
For the black community, loss of the railway added to the growing tension about failure to share in the American dream. The Watts riots of 1965 sent a signal to America that minority communities left out of the American dream of progress and prosperity had had enough. America was shocked by the television images of violence and destruction. Civil rights moved higher up the political agenda. But for the better off in the suburban areas, this worrying trend advanced the cause of the car, not only as a means of transport, but also security.
My automobile is ready when I'm ready to go. It takes me from door to door. I have complete control of who rides in the automobile, when I go, generally when I arrive, though obviously traffic is a factor. I can set the air conditioning, I can set my own video, my own audio tape, and it's a secure environment. I set the air conditioning to my own level. I can pick up children or drop them off. I did when my youngsters were going to school.
All over the world, the popularity of the automobile is threatening its very survival. Choked by pollution and traffic jams, the city of Los Angeles is looking to its past for an alternative. Railway tracks are being laid once again down streets. Following over the old red cars, the new system is called the Blue Line. For 40 years, Kenny Hart has been in Los Angeles local politics, representing a predominantly black precinct where he still lives. He was the driving force behind a revived public rail system.
Hello.
To find the money to build the railway, Hahn's solution was Proposition A, a tax of ½ cent in every dollar on consumer goods, levied purely for public transport.
Well, it was terribly difficult to get people to vote for Proposition A, which created the funds. But once that was done, then it was my job as a political leader of Los Angeles County to see that my district was done first, which I did. And I had to show my people in my district that they could not only hear the blue line, but they could feel it and ride it as a result of a campaign promise I made to them that they would have good transportation.
The people who are transit dependent, who have no automobiles and who have no means of transporting themselves from one end of this vast city and county to the other, are making demands that their political leaders build a rail system. That's one political pressure. The other is that the economy of the whole region is dependent upon rapid transport of people and goods. And so you have this dual approach. Now, if that were not enough, and I think it may be, there is a need to relieve traffic congestion and to relieve air pollution in this vast region. So you've got three very important issues, all of which tie in with political motivation.
In Los Angeles, it's politically correct to support rail. If you ask, should we go to collectivized mass transit rail, the answer will be a resounding yes. But in reality, the thought that most people have, what's in the back of their mind is not that I'm going to get into rail, but rather their friends and their neighbors are going to abandon their automobiles, leave the freeway, and take mass transit rail, and thereby leaving the space available so they then can drive over the freeway without the traffic. And that's what really motivates most people. Most of the folks are voting for transit so someone else will ride it. They won't ride it. And I'm being very candid to say I'm going to be the last one out of my automobile and get into a subway or a rail system. There are no benefits for me and nothing but a downside.
People are very, very stubborn here. There's going to be a hard time to get them out of their cars and into any kind of mass transportation. So it's a difficult job out here, but hopefully they're going to start making some progress out here. We really, really need a mass rail system.
Kenny Hahn addressed that need and convinced enough Los Angeles voters to pass his proposition to build a new rail system along some of the old routes. For Hahn, it secured his success in subsequent local elections and a place in political history.
When they counted the precincts, I had many precincts, 90%, 95%. Some precincts, 100%. It's unusual in California to get a 90% vote. The president would love to have 90% vote. Why did I get 100% in this precinct? It was because in that area I built a swimming pool for their kids, a library for them, or a fire station, or developed this rail line here that they could use. And then, so when they go to the ballot box, I'm going to vote for Kenny Hahn again. 100%. That's unusual in California, or in America, or maybe in the world.
4、3、2、1、スタートです。
In Miyazaki, on the southern tip of Japan, they are not looking for boats to shape the future. The maglev train has dispensed with wheels and rails altogether. Magnets lift and move at speeds of up to 400 kilometers an hour. Whether the maglev train has a future will be determined by the same factor that decided the fate of Argentina's railways and the Los Angeles red cars and every other train system around the world. In the next century, people are expected to move into cities. The struggle to solve transport problems will highlight a central dilemma of democracy and the free market. How to balance individual choice and the public good, and how to encourage private or public investment with no prospects of immediate profit. In Los Angeles, motorists like Gerald Silver have made their individual choice and are content to live with the consequences, even if many of their fellow citizens are not.
One of the great things about the automobile is it's a personalized transportation capital. You have your own stereo system, your own tape decks. You can have your cup of coffee if you feel like, if you spill your coffee, it's your car, who cares? And so I think there is certain of the kind of the Lone Ranger attitude in the automobile. The problem is the Lone Ranger attitude is something for the high prairies. It doesn't fit very well in the megacities we're going to all live in the future.
The passengers on the Tokyo commuter trains have also made their choice and will continue to pay the price for generations to come in their taxis.
If you look at Shinjuku Station each morning with its millions of people passing through there, you see extremely close coordination, some sacrifice of individual comfort, but the overall welfare of the system by what people put up in the railroad network. If you contrast the Japanese trains with the American freeways, with their big luxurious cars, you see a contrast between individual sacrifice for the collective good versus individual comfort at the cost of some collective chaos.
When the railways first appeared, their benefits were clear and immediate. It was a golden age. Building for the future was simpler. But however appealing, we may not be able to recreate the past.
There's a kind of romanticism associated with our past, and we all love our railways and wish we still had them, and we're trying now to reconstruct them. But I think we'll soon see that the cost of doing so is very, very high, and the effect of doing so on traffic congestion will be very, very small.
There's some activities, education and transportation being two of them, which have enormous long-run effects, and it's worth investing even though they don't make narrow economic sense. For example, suppose I was a hard-nosed capitalist mother and father thinking about sending my children to 16 years worth of education. That is a lousy investment that no capitalist would ever make. With 16 years with no returns, there isn't any way that could pay off. On the other hand, having an educated citizenry clearly does pay off for every society. And the same thing's true on a good transportation system. If you look at it at any moment in time and judge it in very narrow criteria, it probably doesn't make sense. We never would have built the interstate highway system under that kind of criteria. On the other hand, in the long run, it does. And of course, it goes right back to why the Roman Empire built roads. It's the thing that holds us together, the transportation system.
That was the final in our series Locomotion. The book is available from ABC shops. Next week, we begin a new series of adventures along some of the world's most spectacular lines. Join Michael Palin as he travels from Ireland's Derry to Kerry in Great Railway Journeys next Saturday night at 7:30. Shortly, police drama in the bill.
It's great viewing Sunday night on your ABC.